Hi, in this video I have the Milex Nutri1000 and it has a problem. When I power it on, it makes a very bad sound. It makes a very bad sound and it vibrates. It sounds like something is broken. Right, so it also stinks now and I can even see some smoke. Look at that. You can see there's the smoke coming out. This piece here has actually become fused onto the plastic here. So if your unit is making a very harsh vibration, a loud noise, or smoking, and then you find that this piece here won't even move, then this is how I solve it. So I'm going to unplug it. So I've now unplugged it from the mains, completely disconnected. There are 4 star screws on the back, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm using a star screwdriver and just unscrewing these screws. Right, this flips off. There we go. Now I want to remove this outer shell here. There's a screw there, there, and one deep inside over there. Right, for this screw over here, I've just used a longer screwdriver. Right, so I'm just unhooking these wires here on the side. And now I can unthread this. Now, while it's open, immediately I notice there are some screws that are coming out at the bottom here. It's like they have come undone. And over here, this is the problem. The stator over here, which is supposed to be mounted onto this frame here, you can see that it's moving, it's loose. And the little screws that are screwed into the stator body here, there was a screw there and maybe one there, is just loose at the bottom there. So what has happened is probably because of vibration or it has been damaged, the screws have unscrewed and just come out, which means this has become loose, which means this has depressed and mated onto the surface. So what I need to do is open this and try and get that back onto this bracket. Right, now in order to remove this motor, I need to unscrew it. So if I show you the other side, over here, this is actually fused to this plastic. I'll deal with that problem shortly. But it's actually going to help me now because all I need to do is rotate this and unscrew it. So all I need to do is rotate this, just the rotor. So I can grab it at the back. If this is a bit sharp, you can wear gloves and then just rotate this. And you might be able to see that it's lifting away from the frame. So I'm just rotating this fan at the back here, which means I'm rotating just the rotor, the moving part inside. There's the rotating part inside, and you can see that the distance between the motor and the frame is now open. And there is the fault. You see these screws have come out. So this should have been fastened very tight onto the stator, this part of the motor. Right, so there are the threads which have been unscrewed from this side. I had sprayed a bit of penetrating lubricant just to help it come out. It's not mandatory. Here is another problem. Because it's been spinning directly on the plastic, it's actually fused the cog onto this plastic. So I have to loosen this and I'm just going to tap it gently with a hammer. Right, so that's the resultant damage. This thing was spinning directly onto the plastic here, getting very hot, and it fused itself onto the plastic. I'm not going to demonstrate the repair. The first thing I'm going to do is just smooth this out. So I'm going to take some 200 grit sandpaper and just sand this down so it's smooth again. Right, so that's smooth. Put that to one side. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. All right, so that's quite smooth. Now I can carry on with the repair. So I'm just spinning this and listening to it, just making sure that it's still fine. What I'm listening for is any noise here and at the back. If I hear any grinding like ooh, 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 then I know that the bearings have failed. In this case, it sounds perfect. There's a little bit of clicking here where the commutator is. That's just because of these carbon brushes running on this commutator. That is normal. It does make a little bit of a clicking sound. Right, so the brushes are in good working order. They're still long and under spring pressure. And now I can take this plate and seat it on here. Right, here are the 4 screws. Now these 4 screws need to be inserted in quite tightly, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a thread locker on it. You can use the blue one, and I just put a few drops here. What this does is it makes it very difficult for the screw to unravel, unscrew when there's vibration. So I just put a drop on each one of these screws. Right, now I'm just going to make sure they're really tight. You could even put some glue on these screw heads so that they don't come out like they had in the past. I'm just using a security glue. It's a non-brittle glue, meaning that when it sets, it's like a gel. Now, unfortunately on mine, one of these posts broke off. So if you have a look at this frame is held on or held in place by these 3 posts. So I have 1, 2, 3. Now this one has broken off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to glue it back on there. So you might not have to do this step. So I'm going to just start with a little bit of super glue there and just put 1 or 2 drops there. Now you can use the Q-bond or whatever other filings, and all I do is I put the filings around you to build that up. And then I drop some glue here. Now, because this seats on that post, I can't build it up too much, otherwise there will be no space for this rubber boot. Right, so you just wait till the glue dries, and then I just can file it down a little bit so that there's space for those rubber bushings. Right, so I've rebuilt that post. It is now strong. If you want it to be stronger than it was when it was new, then I recommend plastic welding. So you don't use these filings, you use a soldering iron, and you get some additional plastic, I call it donor plastic, and you melt it all into here, and you rebuild this up using a soldering iron to melt the plastics. Using the soldering iron is actually superior to using these type of filings and super glue method. If you'd like to see how to do plastic welding, I've got a few videos demonstrating that technique. Right, for the reassembly, I'm just going to reseat this on those posts now. Right, now I reinsert this. I seat it over these 3 posts, check that it's fine. Right, before reinstalling, I just check that all the connectors are firmly in place. Then on the inside, it is beveled on the one side. So that means that this can only fit in one orientation. So in this case, it was wrong. So I'm going to rotate it a bit and see if I can place it. So I'm going to rotate it a bit and see if it's now correct. Still wrong. Try again, rotate the other way around. Yeah, so now it will fit because it is beveled and the side of the stator here is in the correct orientation. So I just have to move the wires out of the way now. Right, so just make sure the wires are out of the way. The wire must not be in between this post and the other post, otherwise the screw is going to go through the wire and also it's not going to fit properly. I'm just holding the wires out of the way and then I'm seating this down. So in this case, I just wrap the wire around there so it's out of the way, and notice that I have to seat that in between the seams. There's a space for the top lid. Notice this is completely closed all the way around. Right, before inserting the screw, just look inside the holes to make sure there's no wire running through. Right, tighten the screws, but don't tighten it too tight because it's just in plastic. So what I do is when I feel like there's some resistance, I go just a little bit more. Right, I just fasten these wires down on the side under this little clip. Now I must remember to put this back on. So I rotate it upside down and I'm going to turn this anti-clockwise. And in order to make it tight, I have to hold on this fan at the back. So I'm just tightening this while holding this in place. Right, I made it quite tight, but I don't have to make it extremely tight because remember that this is in the opposite direction to the rotation of the machine. So it's not going to just suddenly unravel by itself, not at all. In fact, it will probably tighten as it's used. Right, make sure you fasten the wires back down so no wires can get anywhere near this fan. Right, and I screw in these last 4 screws. I give it a shake to make sure there's nothing left inside, maybe a screw or something that fell in here and nothing. There's no loose parts here. I can now give it a test run. I spin this, sounds good. There's no grinding. The problem is now resolved because this is spinning away from this plastic platform here. There's a good 3 to 4 millimeters between the plastic of this and the plastic of this platform at the bottom here. Right, so I power it on and there we go. If I try the pulse option, pulse again, and I'm giving it a shake to just make sure that it is working. And when I take it out, there you can see it's held in place. There's no more problems.